Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us for a press conference with NDP Leader Jagmeet Singh. We're going to take questions at the end, beginning with questions on site. If you have a question on Zoom, please use the raise hand function. Merci de nous rejoindre pour une conférence de presse avec le chef du NPD, Jagmeet Singh. On va prendre des questions à la fin, en commençant avec des questions des gens sur place. Si vous avez une question sur Zoom, je vous demande d'utiliser la fonction lever la main. So I will turn it over to our NDP candidate for Toronto-Danforth, Clare Hacksel.
Hello, thank you so much for being here today. My name is Clare Hacksel, and I am the NDP candidate here in Toronto-Danforth, and I'm very excited to be here talking about the NDP dental care plan today. As of today, children up to 18 and Canadians living with disabilities will now have access to the NDP dental program. And this is huge. This means millions of families are not going to have to choose between going to the dentist and paying their other bills. And we know that this plan has already been so successful for hundreds of thousands of seniors across Canada. And again, those are folks who are no longer delaying care because it's too expensive. And that's why I am so excited to introduce someone today who has been actually out there fighting for services and programs for Canadians from coast to coast to coast. Someone who's been fighting for you and your families so that you can get the care you need. My friends, I'm here to introduce Jagmeet Singh.
Thanks so much, Claire. Really excited to be here in Danforth, Toronto-Danforth, and to be with our incredible candidate, Clare Hacksel. So lucky to have you as a part of our team. As Claire was saying, this is really important. I've spoken with seniors who've got the care, and it has changed their lives. I was just speaking with Kathy and Yetta, and I talked about how I gave them more dignity, made them feel more confident. It's really been life-changing. I think about Susan, who insisted I call her Sue, and she talked about how she had survived cancer, but as a result of cancer, she lost her teeth. The radiotherapy, the chemotherapy meant that she lost all of her upper teeth and a lot of her lower teeth as well. And she had a picture with her and said, I just want my smile back. And I remember being in the dentist's office with her, with Dr. Lee and the denturist Jack. And she said, what can you do for me? And Dr. Lee and the denturist said, we're going to get you your smile back. And I can still remember the tears of joy that Sue had, because she knew she was going to get her smile back. That's how important this is. And imagine how many seniors are getting this care. And now, as Claire said, all the kids now, they're going to be able to have access, because today it officially expands to kids 18 and under and people living with disabilities. This is a really important program. And it highlights that Justin Trudeau has got to get it right. So while the program is so important, there are still some serious gaps. I want to talk about some of those gaps. One is, while some seniors are able to get the care they need and not have to pay any money out of pocket, other seniors are being charged. And this is not what we had agreed to. We'd wanted a program where people go in and get care and don't spend any money out of pocket. But we're hearing about patients, about seniors so far, that have had to pay out of pocket. That should not happen. We also know that there are communities that are not getting access. There are people that can't get a dentist in their communities. And we had said very clearly that Justin Trudeau needed to make sure that we expanded access with different programs to ensure that people in rural or remote communities were able to get care as well. These are outstanding things that Justin Trudeau must fix, because this program is so important and so life-changing. It requires Justin Trudeau to get it right. So we're going to make sure that we keep the pressure up to fix those problems. But we also been hearing from people that while this program is incredibly life-changing, there's still more help that people need. And the two things that I can continue to hear, and I've heard for the past number of years, cost of groceries and the cost of housing. On these two fronts, people feel like they're doing everything right. They're doing everything they were told to do, working hard, trying to make ends meet, but they feel like they're falling further and further behind. And it's not people's fault. I want folks to know that it's not your fault. The rules that were written by Liberals and Conservatives have put all the power in the hands of CEOs who are jacking up prices, who are making record profits, and you're paying more than ever for your groceries. You're getting ripped off because Liberals and Conservatives let CEOs rip you off. That has got to change. We need to change the rules and tip the scales in the favor of people. We need rules that actually protect people and their wallets not corporate profits. And so I'm going to be embarking on a listening across this summer. I'm going to listen to Canadians, taking our ideas to them about what we can do to make life more affordable. Things like a price cap on essential food items, making sure people have real relief when it comes to their groceries. So we're going to take our ideas to Canadians and hear from them, because people need a lot more. And Justin Trudeau has been failing them. And we know that Pierre Poilievre is going to make things even worse. If we think corporations are ripping you off and are jacking up the prices of the goods and you can't afford them now, imagine with Pierre Poilievre and the Conservatives, we're going to give even more power to Conservatives, put more fuel on this fire, and allow them to rip you off even more, even worse. And on top of that, they're going to cut the services that you still have and make you end up paying to see a doctor. That's going to make life even harder. I want folks to know that. So we'll be listening to Canadians with our solutions and bring that back in the fall. But I want folks to know that we see you and we hear you. And then Justin Trudeau has been letting you down, and Pierre Poilievre is going to make things a lot worse. We know that people need some real relief, and we're going to fight to make sure we change the rules to benefit you and your families, not corporate profits, not the CEOs, but you and your families. I'll do that again in French, and then I look forward to your questions. Je suis tellement honoré d'être ici avec Clare Hacksel, notre candidate dans ce comté, Toronto-Danforth. Je viens de parler avec des aînés qui ont partagé leur histoire, comment les soins dentaires ont changé leur vie. Et je sais que c'est vraiment un programme qui fonctionne bien pour plusieurs années et qui a changé leur vie, qui a donné plus de dignité. Mais on sait aussi qu'il y a des problèmes. Donc aujourd'hui, on est fiers qu'on a forcé le gouvernement, on a forcé Justin Trudeau d'améliorer ou augmenter les programmes pour inclure les enfants de moins de 18 ans et aussi les gens qui vivent en situation de handicap. Mais on sait qu'il y a des trous dans le programme, il y a des problèmes qui existent. Et le fait que ce programme peut changer la vie des gens, le potentiel de ce programme mérite que Justin Trudeau règle les problèmes qui existent. Et je veux souligner deux problèmes particulièrement. Premièrement, il y a des exemples où des personnes âgées doivent payer de leur poche, de payer de leur portefeuille pour les services. Ce n'était pas notre demande, ce n'était pas la promesse. On a voulu avoir un programme où les gens ne doivent pas payer de leur poche. Donc ça, c'est un problème que Justin Trudeau doit régler. Deuxièmement, il y a des endroits dans la communauté rurale où il n'y a pas accès aux services de soins dentaires. Donc ça, c'est quelque chose que les libéraux doivent régler aussi. Finalement, ce que j'ai entendu, c'est oui, c'est un programme important, mais les gens méritent ou les gens ont besoin de plus d'aide, particulièrement concernant le coût de logement et le coût d'épicerie. Et on a plusieurs exemples où les libéraux et Justin Trudeau ont dit non à notre solution. Donc cet été, on va entendre les gens, on va écouter les gens, parler avec les gens, partager nos solutions pour comment on peut changer les règles. Parce que les règles étaient écrites par les libéraux et les conservateurs et ces règles favorisent les PDG qui exploitent les gens. Les PDG gagnent plus de profits, augmentent les prix et les gens font mal. Les gens payent les prix. Donc ça, c'est quelque chose qu'on doit régler. On doit avoir des changements dans les règles pour que les règles puissent protéger les gens, le portefeuille, pas les profits des grandes entreprises. Donc ça, c'est un changement qu'on veut mettre en place et on va écouter les gens pendant cet été pour une écoute qu'on appelle changer les règles, parce qu'on doit changer les règles. Donc, avec ça, merci pour votre présence. Je suis prêt pour vos questions. With that, thank you so much, and I'm ready for your questions.
We're going to move to questions on Zoom. We're going to take one question and one follow. Our first question comes from Valérie Gamache avec Radio-Canada.
Bonjour, Monsieur Singh, est-ce que vous m'entendez?
Oui, merci.
Merci. Tout d'abord, j'aimerais vous entendre justement sur le régime d'assurance dentaire. Il y a eu quand même beaucoup de confusion au début. Et là, on se rend compte aussi qu'il y a un problème d'accès dans les régions éloignées où la pénurie pénurie de professionnels fait en sorte que les gens n'ont pas accès au programme. Est-ce que c'est satisfaisant l'état de déploiement du programme d'assurance dentaire pour vous actuellement?
Non. Je suis d'accord avec les critiques. On a partagé ces critiques aussi et je les partage encore aujourd'hui. Et j'ai souligné deux critiques, un que vous avez souligné aussi, le manque d'accès, particulièrement pour les communautés rurales et non urbaines. C'est vraiment difficile. J'ai entendu plusieurs critiques qu'il ne peut pas trouver accès ou ne trouver quelqu'un pour avoir accès aux services dentaires. Donc ça, c'est quelque chose qui est un problème. Et Justin Trudeau doit le régler. Aussi, le fait qu'il y a des gens qui doivent payer de leur poche, comme j'ai dit, ça, c'est un autre problème. Donc, on est fiers qu'on ait forcé le gouvernement de mettre en œuvre un programme, mais c'est la responsabilité du gouvernement de bien gérer ce programme et de régler les problèmes. On a dit depuis le début que le gouvernement doit travailler fort, particulièrement dans les communautés rurales, pour garantir l'accès aux ces services. Et ça, c'est quelque chose qui continue. Et on va continuer de mettre la pression sur le gouvernement, sur les épaules de Justin Trudeau, de régler ce problème.
Et puis, dans un autre dossier, il y a nos collègues du Globe and Mail aujourd'hui qui avancent que l'ancien ministre de la Défense est intervenu personnellement lors de l'opération d'évacuation en Afghanistan pour favoriser l'évacuation de membres de la communauté sikh. Lui est formel en disant qu'il a respecté les politiques du gouvernement. Êtes-vous satisfait de la réponse de M. Sajjan dans ce dossier-là?
Je peux dire, en général, à l'époque, on a eu des critiques énormes de la réponse du gouvernement libéral en général, que les Canadiens, nos alliés, n'ont pas reçu l'aide nécessaire. Donc, on a critiqué le gouvernement à l'époque. Nos critiques sont toujours là. Le fait que, en fait, le gouvernement canadien, le gouvernement libéral, c'était une faillite. Leur réponse pour répondre aux besoins, premièrement, des Canadiens, puis les alliés, les gens qui nous avons aidés, qui nous ont aidés, les gens qui nous ont aidés et qui ont mis leur vie en péril en faisant ça. Donc, je peux aussi dire qu'en Afghanistan, avec les talibans, aucune personne était sécuritaire. Il y avait des menaces pour les communautés minoritaires, il y avait des menaces pour les femmes, il y avait des menaces pour plusieurs personnes. Donc, c'était une situation tragique et le gouvernement libéral n'a pas bien géré le dossier. C'était un échec.
Jagmeet, could you repeat the response in English, please?
Certainly. We said from the beginning that the Liberal government's response in Afghanistan was a failure. We were very critical of the government's failure to respond to the needs of Canadians and those that put their lives in peril, put their lives at risk to support our troops in Afghanistan, that they did not get adequate supports, were not able to be evacuated from the country. And so this is something that is a critique that we had at the time, and we maintain that same serious critique. I think it should be a scathing critique of their failure to support both Canadians and our allies. In addition, I should make it very clear that no one under the Taliban regime was safe. Minority communities, women, activists, they were a huge host of people that were at risk in a very serious way. And Canada has a responsibility to provide some relief to those folks and didn't do a good job, not just of supporting our allies and Canadians, but also providing relief to, or some security to those that were fleeing what was a very serious and scary situation for them, and dangerous situation for them.
Next, we have David Aiken from Global News.
Good afternoon, guys. Thanks so much for taking our questions. First one, just for you, just about the political, I don't know, implications of the dental care plan. You probably heard Clare introduce it as the NDP dental care plan. Of course, there's another partner there. So I'm just wondering, if the plan gets fixed and things are improved, can you see Canadians giving you and perhaps the Liberals some political reward for the program?
Ultimately, I got to say, when I chose to get into politics, I thought, what can I do with this position to help people out? And then I looked at a minority government, and I'm sure folks are familiar. New Democrats, when we get in power, our first thought is, how do we make life better for people? And if you look at the history of our party, that's what we've done. Tommy Douglas did it. Stephen Lewis did it. That is what New Democrats do. We use our power. Jack Layton did it. We use our power to make people's lives better. And so that was my first goal. And I wanted folks to know that not only do New Democrats have good ideas, we can get stuff done. And we got things done. We got things done with just 25 MPs. And I want folks to know, look at what we did with our power. the Liberals had said no to this idea. They said no to dental care. They voted against it, in fact. And we've got all the receipts of them voting against it. And then we made them do it. And now we've got people like Kathy, like Sue, that have actually received this care and are better off because of it. And we want Canadians to know that we're proud that we were able to do that, but there's problems with this program. The Liberals need to take it seriously. Justin Trudeau needs to fix it. And I hope Canadians can now have confidence when we say we're going to take on a problem, you can trust us to fix it. But also look at what the Conservatives did in this time. They used their power to vote against dental care. They want to take it away. They want to take away pensions. They want to take away EI. They want to cut health care. That's what they want to do with their power. And I want Canadians to make a choice or make an informed decision with their choices. When people want change, you want change towards the Conservatives who want to cut and gut your services, not take on the corporate greed that's driving up your cost of living, or New Democrats who have fought for you, who've brought in programs that make your life better and are going to continue to fight to make life more affordable.
Thanks. And while I've got Claire, I wouldn't mind asking Claire a question because, of course,
Sure.
there's a lot of parts of the country, Jagmeet might be in your riding, where the real alternative is going to be a Conservative. But Claire, of course, I think really in your riding, you're probably knocking on doors, talking to people who voted for Julie DeBruzen. So you have to convince someone who voted for a Liberal that it's time to vote for a New Democrat. Now, that probably Jagmeet just gave you some hints about what you say to that voter, but maybe you could explain when someone says, well, I like Julie and I voted for Julie last time, how do you convince that voter to perhaps take a look at you and your candidacy?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I do get questions like that at the door, but actually, mostly what I hear is I'm really frustrated with the Liberals. My life hasn't gotten any better. I voted for them maybe the last 2 times around, but things have only gotten more expensive. Things have gotten only more difficult. And I want somebody who's willing to fight for me and fight for my family and fight for the programs and services that I need. And that's what I see in the NDP. That's what I've seen in the last few years from the NDP. And that's why I'm going to support you in the next election.
Thanks. That's awesome. You see why she's one of our star candidates there.
Our next question comes from Catherine Levesque with the National Post.
Hi, Mr. Singh, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, hi. I wanted to ask you about Toronto-St.Paul's. Why do you think your party had a lower score than in 2021 this time?
Well, I think what that by-election showed is how frustrated Canadians are with Liberals, really. This is a clear message that people are frustrated, like Claire was saying, at the doorsteps. We hear this again and again. Things are getting worse, not better. The Liberals have had 9 years to make improvements, and they haven't. And so now people have a real choice. And that choice is going to be between Conservatives who want to cut and gut the services that people need. They're going to cut, and they've been open about it. They want to make cuts to pensions, cuts to EI. And for people that are already hurting, struggling with a cost of living crisis, that's just going to make things even worse. And then when we identify what people are going through, when you're paying more than ever at the grocery store and you're paying prices that you've never seen before, on the other end of that is a CEO that's been ripping you off. And if we give corporate Canada even more power, they're going to rip off people even more. Your prices are going to continue to go up. So the way we deal with that is let's bring in changes to the rules that actually protect consumers, protect Canadians. And we're the only party that's talking about that. The only party that's saying, let's change the rules so that people can afford their groceries. Let's change the rules so we don't let big corporations buy up all the housing so people can't find a place to live. Let's change the rules to put people first and tip the scales in their favor for once. So that's the choice that we're going to put to people. And I think that's what a by-election really highlights, the choice that's in front of Canadians.
Mm-hmm. And I understand all that, but clearly people made a choice and they clearly did not choose the NDP this time around. So concretely, how are you going to reverse the situation in time for the next general election?
Well, there's a number of things we've got to do. One is we've got to make it clear to Canadians that the Liberals have been in power and your life hasn't got better. So that's in front of you. Things have gotten worse. They have let you down. And then we've got to make a real clear-eyed view of what the choices are. The Conservatives are not hiding what they're going to do. Pierre Poilievre came out very quickly when he became a leader and said one of his first plans was to cut EI and to cut pensions. And it's not hard to believe, because when Harper was in power, they indeed did cut pensions. They increased the age when people could qualify for pensions. They cut healthcare. So it's not hard to believe that that is what they're going to do. They talk about it a lot. They talk about cutting. They are going to cut. They're also going to cut your services that you need. They're going to cut investments in healthcare. They're going to cut protections for people. They're going to make it easier for corporations to rip you off. And we know when corporations rip you off, what is the outcome? Well, you end up paying more and more for the things that you need. People end up hurting. And then there's a choice with New Democrats, what we are doing. What have we shown we're doing? We're going to take on those rich CEOs that are ripping you off and propose and put in place laws that protect you, not corporate profits. We want to protect people's wallets, people from being exploited. And so that's something that we also want to protect the services. We want to keep dental care in place. We want to expand it. Conservatives want to take it away. So for the folks that we met today, the seniors that I just talked with who feel so much more dignity, so much healthier, so much happier, being able to get their teeth looked after, Pierre Poilievre wants to take that away. So we'll have a real choice in front of Canadians, and we'll make that choice very clear. You Democrats are going to fight for you, take on corporate greed, make life more affordable, change the rules to benefit you. Conservatives want to cut and gut the services, let corporate Canada rip you off even more, driving up your costs. That's a choice.
Next, we have Ashley Burke with the CBC.
Apologies for the delay. Thanks for taking my question. Minister Sajjan said that when he was defense minister, he directed the Canadian Armed Forces to help a group of Afghan Sikhs during the evacuation in Afghanistan in 2021, and that he relayed information to the military about how to rescue them. Is that appropriate for the Minister of National Defense to have done that?
The scenario around what he did or didn't do, I mean, we just take a step back and look at the overall actions of the Liberal government, of the minister, of the prime minister when it comes to Afghanistan. It was a massive failure. Like, there were so many levels of failure there. We weren't able to get Canadians out. Our own Canadians weren't able to get out. I mean, that's always got to be a top priority. Then our allies, there's people that put their lives at risk for us. They weren't evacuated. That is already a massive failure. And then there's an additional responsibility that Canada has to ensure that people that are suffering have some solace or some refuge in Canada. We have been leaders in welcoming refugees, and that is another additional responsibility we have. When people saw the Taliban regime coming in, they knew that that meant a lot of people's lives were at risk, and Canada had a responsibility. And so those responsibilities were not met. Canada failed, the minister, the prime minister failed, and the failure meant that a lot of people's lives were at risk and continue to be at risk. And that's a serious problem.
But from your perspective, is it appropriate or not for the Minister of Defense at that time to be getting involved to try and help out Afghan Sikhs get to Canada?
The specific, I don't know enough of the details about the specifics of what Minister Sajjan did or didn't do, but I can tell you that the Liberals failed. They failed miserably, and it hurt people. I take no joy in pointing out this failure because Canadians suffered as a result. We saw that our allies suffered as a result, and minority communities that were at threat. Women, minority religious communities, all who were at a threat because of the Taliban. No one was safe when the Taliban regime was coming in, and they all failed. And so I'm very critical of the minister and of the prime minister of their failed response to this serious crisis. And the result of that crisis was many lives were put in deep jeopardy.
Our next question comes from Mickey Jurek with the Canadian Press.
Thank you for taking my question. This is for both of you, if you both don't mind answering. But I guess, seeing the Liberal loss in Toronto-St.Paul, it shows that seats are able to flip in Toronto. So how do you both capitalize on this moment and win back some seats yourself in Toronto?
Yeah, we look at this as really people sending a clear message. They are frustrated with Trudeau. They're done with Trudeau. And they are frustrated with the Liberal Party. And they got reason to be. We know that food inflation has outpaced general inflation for more than 2 years. And we saw a really embarrassing and negligent response from the Liberal government. They at one point asked Canadians with a straight face to look at flyers, like to look at grocery flyers at a time when people couldn't afford their groceries. Like, how insulting is that? They also said that they were going to ask the CEOs of these corporations nicely to stabilize prices. Again, a failure. What we need is strong laws that protect Canadians. That's what we need to do. So we're going to put that, we're going to let Canadians know. We're going to let people know in Toronto, your life hasn't gotten better with Liberals. They have not taken your concerns seriously. They've ignored you, taken you for granted, but we haven't. We have fought for you. We brought in dental care, which is helping people in a real way. We're expanding that. Today, it's being expanded to include kids and people living with disabilities. And we've been fighting against the root causes why your grocery prices are so high, why it's so hard to get housing, because rich CEOs are exploiting the system. They have rules that have been written in their favor that have allowed them to rip you off when you go to the grocery store. So you end up paying more and they get richer and richer. That large corporations are buying up housing in our city, buying up housing in cities across this country, buying up housing in the city. And that means people can't afford a home. We need to change the rules and tip the scales in favor of people. And we're the only ones that can do that. The Liberals aren't going to do it. They had 9 years to do so, and they haven't. The Conservatives certainly aren't going to do that. They're going to let corporate Canada go rampant. And if you feel like you're being ripped off now, imagine what Pierre Poilievre's going to do. He's going to let them rip you off even more. He's not going to take on the big corporations that are buying up housing. Those are his buddies. He's going to let them do that even more. He's not going to stop the CEOs that are ripping you off when you go to buy your groceries. He's going to encourage them. But we're going to take a stand against them. We've taken a stand. We're going to fight back. And so we want people in Toronto to know we've got your back. We see you, we hear you. We know that you're worried about prices of groceries and housing. We're the ones that are going to fight for you and stand up for you. We'll give Claire a shot at that too.
Yeah. Well, I echo a lot of the things that Jagmeet just said. When I'm on the doorstep, I've gone out, I've met thousands of people across Toronto-Danforth, and they all pretty much say a lot of the same things. They say they're working so hard. They feel like they're doing everything right. They don't know how their children are going to afford a home. They don't know how they're going to pay their bills at the end of the month. And these are real issues, pocketbook issues they talk about around the kitchen table, just like I do with my family in Toronto-Danforth. And when they look at the parties and they think, okay, well, what are my options next time around? Who's really out there fighting for me? All they see is the NDP fighting. The other parties, they talk a lot of talk. They talk about burning things down, but they don't come with real solutions. And that's what the NDP is putting forward. We brought forward real solutions around dental care, pharmacare, anti-scab legislation. This is the party that is fighting. And when they say, I want my next MP to be someone who fights for me, they know that that's the NDP candidate. That's someone like myself.
Love it. We're clear.
Yeah, and my follow-up is, Nenshi, he just won leadership in Alberta for the NDP, but he ran on a desire to divorce from the federal NDP. Have you spoken to Nenshi at all about this? And what are your thoughts on him running on that?
I had a good chat with Mr. Nenshi, and I congratulated him on his win. And we got to reiterate our goal. We have a united goal. Right now, at the provincial level in Alberta, provincially in a lot of places, Conservatives are a threat to people. Conservatives are directly attacking healthcare, education. They're even attacking pensions. So in Alberta, New Democrats are united with a very clear goal of defeating Daniel Smith, who is a real threat to Canadians, who's a real threat to Albertans. And nationally, New Democrats are also united. We've got to replace Justin Trudeau, and we've got to defeat Conservatives. But Pierre Poilievre also wants to do the same things as Daniel Smith. He wants to cut healthcare. He wants to take away people's services. He wants to cut and gut the things that you need. It's only going to make life worse. He wants to let corporations have no rules to rip you off even worse. And so it's clear we are united in our goals to take on Conservatives, to bring forward a clear vision for a government that works for people. And the best way we achieve that goal is by being united. And I made that very clear.
Our next question comes from Rachel Haynes with CTV.
Hi there. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So I just wanted to ask you again about the by-election. Given the Liberals having lost the seat and the NDP's low performance in a seat that you hold provincially, do you think it's time to pull out of the supply and confidence agreement? Is that something that you're going to do?
Our plan right now is what we've always said. Our goal is to get Ottawa to work for people. We said that from the beginning. That's been my goal. and we're going to use the power we have to make that happen. Justin Trudeau's let people down. It's very clear. Pierre Poilievre wants to cut and gut the services that people need very desperately. And so people are counting on us, and I get that. So we're going to keep on fighting to make sure Ottawa delivers for you. That's why I'm going to be listening to people across the summer. We're going to be hearing from people about how we change the rules to tip the scales in their favor, because the decks are stacked against people. It is so clear the deck is stacked against you when you're working harder than ever before and you can't pay your bills. When you go in the grocery store and you try to buy what you could afford before and you can't afford it anymore. When you can't afford your groceries, let alone the special treats for your loved ones. When you can't find a home in your city that you live in. You can't find a place to rent in Toronto. It's clear that the rules are not in your favor, and we got to change that. We got to make the rules in favor of people, and that's going to require some courage, and it's clear that neither the Liberals or Conservatives are going to do that. They're too cozy with the powerful corporations that are benefiting from these rules. We want rules to benefit people. We want to make sure you can afford your groceries. We want to have strong protections in place for consumers. We want people to be able to find homes. We don't want it to be that housing market is designed for rich investors to make lots of money. We want people to be able to find a place to call home. And so that's our priority. Our priorities are very different, and we want people to know that they have a real choice. We know the real threat of Conservatives. They're going to cut the things you need. They're going to cut and gut your services. And they're only going to give corporations even more power. And that's going to mean a worse time for people being able to afford their necessities. And New Democrats have made our priorities clear. We want to invest in the things you need, like dental care. And we also want to take on the fact that you can't afford your groceries by going after the real problem, the CEO that's ripping you off. We want to make sure that corporations don't buy up all the affordable housing in a city, and so there's nowhere left for people to live. We've got real solutions that are focused on people. Conservatives want to cut, the Liberals will let you down. New Democrats got your back.
Do you think then that strategy is working for you if you're saying that people are frustrated with Liberals, yet you continue to have the supply and confidence agreement, and you didn't answer my question as to whether or not you would be willing to end that early?
But right now, that's not a decision we're making today. What we're focused on is using our power to get people the help they need, and we're going to continue to do that. There's lots more work that needs to be done, and so we're going to continue to focus on that work. We've got the dental care rollout just today for kids 18 and under and people living with disabilities. We want to make sure that works. I pointed out some serious flaws in the program. We want to force the government those flaws. It's the government's responsibility to deliver this program properly. If we force them to bring it in, now they've got to make sure they deliver it properly. So we're going to keep that pressure going. We're going to use our power to make auto work for people. And we know that they need help with the cost of groceries and rent. We're the only party you can count on to actually fight to make this government work for you.
This concludes our press conference. Thank you.
Thanks so much. Merci.